This is episode number 32 of DevOps Paradox with Darren Pope and Victor Farsik. I am Darren.
And I'm Victor.
I recently had the opportunity to teach let's call it a Getting Started with Kubernetes workshop. Does that seem like a safe name? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Kubernetes Fundamentals.
Kubernetes Fundamentals. Yep, that's a good way to put it. Based on Victor's 2.3 book. And I'm glad he did all that work and I didn't have to. Because it was a lot of stuff. It was a 4-day class. We did 4 full days of going through. And the group, so if you're listening to this, you know who you are. Thanks for being so gracious and putting up with me. But we chose EKS as our preferred Kubernetes to test with because that's their platform that they are going to run on. Again, all good. It was a wonderful experience. EKS is great.
Okay, did you upgrade it?
Well, no.
Did you scale it?
Yes.
Okay, how?
We had to deal with installing the cluster autoscaler and making sure all that worked correctly.
Yeah, and you did all that in a declarative format. So that you can manage it in Git.
Partially.
Cool, that's great. What did you use? Terraform?
We used Terraform. We used the modules published by AWS to spin up EKS, which was actually pretty straightforward.
Okay, so
it wasn't horrible. Yeah.
How many tens of lines of Terraform you had?
Somewhere probably in the 40 to 50 range.
Really? Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. It wasn't huge. It might have been pushing 60, but it wasn't horrible. It was somewhere in that ballpark.
It's nice.
See, you didn't have to scroll a lot. Let's put it that way.
So, why did they use AWS?
That's the provider that has been deemed this is who we're with.
So isn't that, so basically, if you understand, I'm just kind of trying to conclude things from what we said so far. So basically, and I assume that would be similar situation with other companies, is that actually companies are not really deciding where they're going to run something based on quality of that something, but simply it needs to be this provider or that.
Right, because that's who we have our maintenance contracts with. It's where we do all of our other stuff, or we're using other features there, so we just want to get one bill.
Exactly. So basically that means that it does not really matter whether it's whether a service a provider provides is a good or a bad one.
Yeah, because it usually doesn't come down to that. It usually comes down to money, not the quality of the product.
If you chose to use Azure or AWS or whatever you chose, basically those companies don't have a real incentive to give you good or a bad service. Does not really matter because you're going to stick with them no matter what.
Well, I'd even say for the big three, at least, it doesn't matter if you're a hobbyist or if you're the largest financial institution in the world. You get the same level of service. Same basic level of service. Let's be clear, because you can pay for more service. But
yeah, I meant more like kind of whether this provider's service is better than the others does not really matter if a company already made a long-term deal with one of those.
Right.
So, why don't we turn it around? Why don't we... So what I'm not really seeing much when I read articles, Google stuff and things like that is that I haven't seen really many comparisons between running Kubernetes here or there, what is better, what is worse, beyond 5 silly things, and the conclusion is whatever depends type of stuff.
Like they're trying to do a bake-off, right? And it's not really a good enough bake-off. like our last episode, we talked about recipes, right?
Yeah.
They're not even baking the cookies all the way to the end. They're just putting flour on the pan and saying, okay, well, this is okay.
Yeah, which is terribly terrible. So why don't we do an experiment? Why don't we define the tools, define the providers, define the tasks, and make some kind of fixed criteria for all of them? And depending on that criteria, we can discuss which one is better than the other.
Why would we want to apply logic and data to the situation?
How else do you choose? All right.
Well, obviously, choices are made for us in a lot of cases. We're an AWS shop. We're a Microsoft shop. We're a fill-in-the-blank shop.
But on the other hand, so there is a very, very small number of companies that are using multiple providers, and there is I still have impression, I might be wrong, that still the majority of companies are not really in cloud yet. They are on-prem, and they are planning to go to cloud in some future. Mm-hmm. And since Kubernetes is all the rage right now, Kubernetes is probably going to be one of the factors that they're going to use to decide whether they should go to Azure or, I don't know, AWS or Google.
Seems reasonable.
Whatever.
Yeah. Because if they're replatforming most of their stuff to be on Kubernetes, it seems like you want your Kubernetes to be as simple to operate as possible. That way I can get it.
Isn't that the point of the service? Kind of make it simple for me.
Yeah, it's like I'm not willing to go full PaaS like a Heroku or something else. I still need to be able to do certain things. Maybe I need to be able to be able to bake my own worker nodes because I need specific security software on my worker nodes because fill in the blank.
Yeah.
So if we're going to do an experiment, what are some of the what would we test? I mean, it seems like maybe how easy is it to spin up a cluster? That's a good place to start, right?
The kind of the things that everybody needs to do is you need to create a cluster. You need to maintain that cluster. And that maintenance in a most basic form means scale it up and down.
Yeah.
And upgrade it.
Mm.
Kind of like there are many other things you need to do, but in a nutshell, that's what absolutely
that's minimum.
That's a minimum. Nobody can avoid upgrading the cluster. Nobody can avoid.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah. Okay. No. Nobody can avoid now. Somebody are getting close to avoiding it by waiting until the end of life.
Right.
So you can postpone it for 5 years.
That was it's actually not even that long. With EKS, we were going through the documentation with EKS, and they only keep 3 around.
Yes.
So at some point, so at the time we were recording this, 14 is the highest. So 14, 13, and 12 are all the currently supported. Those are the ones you can spin up today. We're recording this, what is today? November 6th, 7th, somewhere in there. November 7th.
I mean, I'm not sure about that one because EKS is relatively new. I think it's like a year and a half old. So those might be...
It was called out in the documentation, though. It was like, so
only
11 is getting ready to be, you're going to be auto-upgraded to 12.
Yeah. And actually, there is a thing in Kubernetes that not many people are, everybody's aware is that you cannot upgrade, you cannot jump more than one minor version.
Right.
So you cannot go from 1.13 to 1.15.
Straight. You have to go through 14 to get there.
So having 3 makes a lot of sense, not more.
Right. So when I get auto upgraded because I put my head in the sand from 11 to 12 and everything breaks, then I'm going to be yelling at AWS. But AWS is very explicit in how they say they're going to maintain it. So if you don't like dealing with upgrades, maybe Kubernetes is not for you.
I mean, okay, if you don't like dealing with upgrades, maybe software industry is not for you.
Yeah. Mainframe. It's all mainframe nowadays.
Exactly.
But even mainframes upgrade. Okay, so let's get back to this for a second. So you're thinking we need to be able to create
scale, upgrade,
and upgrade.
And I'm kind of like, I'm a cool guy. I want that to be defined in some kind of declarative format that is idempotent and can be stored in Git.
So no pointy clicky.
No
stuff at all.
so no UIs and no CLIs.
No CLIs.
I mean, when I say CLIs, it's okay, CLI that will execute something defined in JSON, YAML, whatever, but not CLI kind of like
With switches.
create cluster.
Yeah, that's not okay. All right.
Because I cannot, if I have a command create cluster, then what will happen when I change want to update that cluster? Am I going to create a new one? It's not idempotent.
So let's assume we're doing managed service providers. Obviously, the big three would be how, can we do it that way?
AWS, Azure, Google.
Yeah.
Put a small one as well. DigitalOcean.
DigitalOcean?
Not everybody. Some people hate big guys.
Yeah.
They're bullies.
That's a stretch. They're not bullies.
Okay.
They're just big. They're just big. And it's just that power.
Also expensive. I mean, I know quite a few people who are running on DigitalOcean and Linode because they have very small shops, and the price of running in AWS can be too elevated.
Too much. Well, I mean, let's step back and think about it for just a second. Let's look at just the big three for a moment. To run a managed Kubernetes cluster, so EKS, AKS, GKE. AWS is the only one that charges you for the control plane today, right?
Yes. So it's double.
And it's like $150 or something US a month, somewhere in that ballpark.
I don't know the
it is,
price,
right?
to be honest, but it's kind of, it is very disappointing if you ask me, because if the other two are offering me free control plane, so let's say for the sake of argument that worker nodes are the same price on all three. I know that that's not true, but for the sake of argument. So if I'm going to pay for 3 worker nodes and 3 master nodes, that's double than if I'm going to pay only for 3 worker nodes. So actually AWS, just because of that, is much more expensive. Now, of course, that is irrelevant. If you're running a 100 node cluster, then that difference is not really important. But if you're running like 3, 5, 10 nodes, 3 extra nodes it
adds up. Okay, you actually stepped on something there too. Is it important that a managed service actually also make sure that their control plane is highly available?
Not control plane. It's important that the cluster is highly available.
Cluster's highly available.
Period.
Okay.
That applies to control plane, to worker nodes, to anything.
And that would typically expose itself in the upgrade process would be the biggest time, right? If it's
I mean, let's say for a simplistic reason, let's forget about Kubernetes. If you run only one node, something, if you upgrade it means you need to shut it down and then put it back up. That's downtime, right? But it's not only that, it's about the process itself. If you have multiple nodes, are you upgrading one at a time or all at once? And things like that. There are many reasons why you might have downtime when you upgrade or update or do something with the cluster. Right. But yes, I would say that high availability of the cluster is probably one of the critical issues. It's one of those things that are, to me, less important when it's on-prem. Now, actually, it's not true what I say less important, but I have more understanding for somebody not being highly available when on-prem, because there are many things that you might not have, like 3 geographically close data centers are required for high availability, right? And things like that. So you cannot have it when you're on-prem. Not everybody can have it. But cloud, kind of like, the idea of cloud is that I have infinite resources at my disposal. And somebody's wisdom to create services around that infrastructure that is based on more experience than I could ever have myself. Right? Isn't that kind of like one of the appeals of cloud?
because they're going to have a whole lot smarter people than me.
Yes. Not only smarter people, but also that's their business, right? Their business is to run my infrastructure and to provide me with services that I can have certain level of control of things. And I choose to use those services because then I can focus on whatever really matters for my business.
Right. So create, scale, update, all has to be in code.
And the code, this is not going to be a discussion, needs to be Terraform. This is not open for discussion.
But why? I mean, with AWS, I can use EKS Cuddle. I can pass in a YAML file to it. I mean, what's wrong with that?
Yes, but then I would be comparing apples and oranges, right?
Oh, so you're talking about we need to be able to compare all of these as common as possible across all the big three, and we picked DigitalOcean probably as an example for a small one.
Yes. So I we pick a tool and we say, okay, there are two things we want. We want Kubernetes and we want to manage it with a tool. And that tool should work across all of them. Providers.
Yeah.
That could be Terraform, could be Ansible, could be Chef, Puppet, I don't know what, right? Yeah. But Terraform is the cool stuff. It is open source. It is designed to manage cloud.
Okay, fair enough. And Terraform 12 is really good.
It is really good.
12 has HashiCorp. Please forgive me. You fixed a lot of stuff in 12 that was really bad in 11. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart.
It was bad before, but still better than others.
Still better than others. Okay, so no custom CLIs. Are we bashing custom CLIs? Or just for this concept where it's like, okay, I want to be able to see a comparison and I want to keep it as common as possible.
So I want to use Terraform, right?
You just want to use Terraform. Okay, that's
I want
fine.
to use Terraform, but I'm not. So one thing important about me is that I give up easily. If something is too complicated for me to do, let's say in Terraform, I'm going to switch to something else. So kind of like my tolerance threshold is very, very low.
Right.
So yes, I want to, and I'll be honest now with you. I have experience with Terraform. I have experience with some of the services in some of the cloud providers, but I actually haven't done it with all of those.
Okay. This sounds like a good experiment. Should we do it?
We're gonna do it.
We're going to do it.
We're gonna do it. We're
So
going to tell
mean?
people which one sucks the least. Is
sucks.
this
so?
What you, dear listener, what you should know is whenever I say words like that, Darren puts a strange face because he doesn't like putting explicit on our podcast.
Sucks is not going to put us into explicit. It's
Okay.
just.
You want me to say something that will, or
No, please don't. So, all right. So we do this. All right. So we talked about EKS, AKS, GKE. We'll pick DigitalOcean because DigitalOcean is very developer friendly.
yeah,
Right. And we just pick them because not anti anybody else that has one. If you have any others that you think are outside those four that are cloud based, that would be the only prerequisite, right?
So it's not really.
Or does it even matter?
It matters because if it's something on-prem, then I don't have a good way to demonstrate something that will be similar to what others are doing. So kind of like on-prem can be anything, right?
Yeah.
And do we really have for experiments at our disposal unlimited hardware sitting below our desks and stuff like that?
Don't even have a desk. I have a card table. Okay.
So the four guys, Terraform manages all of them.
Yeah.
And predefined set of tasks so that it is as objective as possible.
Yeah.
Create, scale, upgrade, destroy.
And then once we've done that, the output is a pros and cons list type deal, right? Because I'm assuming, or I don't know, what would that?
Yeah, some pros and cons. This is good. This is bad. This is horrible. Don't do it ever again. Type of stuff. Some kind of checklist. Yeah. Yes. No. Yes. No. Yes. No. And we publish it somehow.
Publish
As a blog post or as a video course or a book or
something.
Or a phone call to my office where the secretary will explain everything.
I should just beat that out. A video course.
We'll do a video course.
But you write books.
I have a pretty face. People want to see that pretty face.
Okay, a video course. Okay, so today, again, we're recording on November 7th. This is publishing on December 6th. I think today's December 6th, right? If you're listening to this.
Today is November 7th.
Today's November 7th, but if you're listening to this, it's December 6th.
Okay, that's a month. 4 providers, 1 month,
not December 6th. It is December... I don't know. We should probably know when things happen. December 4th. It's December 4th, if you're listening to this.
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
1 provider per week to experiment, to do stuff, record stuff, make it presentable, and then we... Okay, no. Let's do it 5 weeks. Then we speak about it in the next episode.
Oh, okay. So we're going to start working on this. Okay. So then in the next episode, which will come out on December 11th.
Except that next episode, we cannot record so much in advance, but it needs to be really a few days before we release it.
Yeah. So we got to get a little bit closer on that one, but that's okay. All right. So you heard it here first. Victor's doing a video course. That's different.
With the title, Which Provider Sucks the Least with Kubernetes?
Well, that's probably the title of this episode.
That's the working title.
Well, that's the working title for the course, but that's not the course title that will be out there.
Nothing
or maybe it is. I don't know. But it's definitely this episode title within some variation of that. Okay, cool.
So what are your bets? Okay, give me the list from the best to the worst.
But see, it's so subjective.
I don't know. It's going to be objective, but now kind of your personal favorite.
Okay, so here's where I have to be. I haven't worked with AKS at all, so that's not even on my list.
I mean, it's based on guesses. It's okay.
If I had, okay. So if I'm guessing,
it's like betting, right? You bet on if you ever bet on horses, you don't really know which one is better than the other.
Okay, so let's at least group them. So I'm going to put DigitalOcean at the bottom just because they're smaller. That's my only I have about them is that they're smaller. For the big three, I would have to go with probably Google at the top because they're the ones that are dealing with Kubernetes the longest. Or at least that's my assumption. And let's put EKS number 2 because AWS is bigger than Azure. So then AKS comes 3. So it's all about size. So my size, with the exception of Google actually bringing Kubernetes to the
forefront. It's not about sizes. You put the second smallest on the top. It's not about size.
Yeah, okay. All right. So my stack at the moment is GKE, EKS, AKS, and then what's DigitalOcean's called? Docs?
Docs.
DOKS, I think, right?
DOKS.
Yeah. That's my gut feel just without any empirical data. That's mine. So,
Okay.
what about yours? Are you going to say anything or no?
No, because I've worked with all 4 of them.
Okay, so you got okay. So since I haven't worked with all of them, I can safely say no. All right. So the next episode we'll talk about the output. What's the word I'm looking for? The conclusion of this.
You're gonna get the report.
Get the report. Oh, this is going to be the executive summary, right?
Executive summary, exactly. There you go.
So the next episode, 33, will be the executive summary of this experiment.
Yes.
Of which managed Kubernetes server sucks the least.
Yes. That title that I'm suggesting already tells you that I have some experience with them.
Right. It means you've... Well, and I've had some... There were pluses and minuses to EKS. Like one of the things is I had to install the cluster autoscaler. That would have been nice just to be out of the box because...
Exactly.
Or if nothing else, a switch saying I want to turn it on or off. Right, that would be okay too. I just didn't like having to manage it.
So, but and this kind of basically almost a spoiler, but with EKS, you have to define a cluster, but cluster does not include worker nodes. So you need to define worker nodes separately, but they don't include subnets. So you need to define subnets, but they don't include VPCs and so on and so forth. So and I'm not now talking about Terraform or any of those things. The problem with EKS is that it doesn't have managed Kubernetes as a service. It has managed control plane as a service. You cannot create a Kubernetes cluster in EKS as a single service.
That's true. So small spoiler, but that's it for today. If you want to get in contact with us, go out to devopsparadox.com/contact. You'll find all the information, including the Voxer link if you want to leave us a voice message. So we have a lot of work in front of us, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm going to Milwaukee next week, and my understanding is that
it's cold.
It's so cold.
It's cold
that I will be stuck in my hotel room, and that will be motivation to do this work.
Well, again, we're recording this early, so you will have already been back home, thankfully, after Milwaukee, but it's going to be brutal. I'm just glad I'm not up there right now. All right. Anything else? So now we've got to go heads down.
Yep.
Okay. Next episode, you'll get your executive summary report of which managed Kubernetes server sucks the least. I actually really like that. That's starting to roll off the tongue now.
Yeah.
All right. So this was 32. So thanks for listening to episode 32 of DevOps Paradox.